So in this video, I'd like to just give you an overview as to what I'm expecting in your animation project. I'd like you to take your hyperreality project and I'd like you to animate a couple of the effects on it. I'd like you to have a total of 5 different animations spread out over 3 different effects. So there are 3 different things that I'd like you to put onto 5 different layers. So obviously a couple of those things you can do a couple of times. So let's look at a finished hyperreality project. This is the one that I had going for my examples. And just remember, I try to keep mine a little bit shorter so that I can keep the video shorter. So that's why my hyperreality doesn't have quite as many layers as yours needed to. Therefore, you're only going to see me applying the effects to 3 of my layers, but I want you to apply it to 5 of them. Remember, you needed to add 8 different layers to your image. So one of the first things that I did was I animated my curves. My curves is what made this image have more contrast. So I'm going to scroll through this, and what I want you to focus on is just simply how the picture gets darker as I scroll through the timeline. So there are a couple of different effects, but just notice how the image gets darker. It builds up the contrast. So that's one of the effects that I want you to apply. I want you to take one of your adjustment layers. Maybe you have levels or a color adjustment or curves, any one of those, and you're going to animate that effect over the timeline. The next effect, and I'm just going to increase the size of my timeline a little bit here and scroll down. And the first thing you'll notice is that every single one of my layers becomes a layer here in my timeline. The timeline starts out with a duration of 6 seconds. And I'm going to ask you to expand that to about 10 seconds. And I'll go through how to do that in the next video. So the next thing to notice is the castle over here comes in after 2 seconds. And it comes in with a slight fade. So I just want you to now focus on that as I scrub through. So look in the middle of the screen and the middle of the bridge, and there you see the castle slowly fades in. So it's not there in the beginning, and then it kind of fades in. That's the second effect that I'm going to ask you to do. Take any one of your layers, something that's probably a focal point, and you're going to erase that from the beginning and then have it come in after a couple of seconds with a slow fade. And the third thing that I want you to do is playing with the layer style and to add some kind of effect such as a color overlay. And that's what I did right here in the middle. So now I'm going to scroll through, just starting back at the beginning, and now notice how this layer has some color that's going to slowly come through. And that is through one of my layer styles over here. So the layer style over here, oops, sorry, I'm not in the right spot. And that was simply adding a color overlay, but animating that over time, so it slowly increases. So the 3 things, again, just in summary, that I want you to add to your video will be to take one of your adjustment layers, such as curves or levels, and to animate that over time so it increases or decreases in intensity. To take another one of your layers and to remove it from the very beginning and then have it come in after a couple of seconds, but to use an effect so that it fades in. And the third that I want you to do is to add a layer style to one of your layers, and you can add something such as a color overlay. And I did it to my sky layer, but it was masked out, so you only saw it here. And we're going to talk about keyframes and how to increase the opacity or the end result of that layer style over the time using keyframes. Okay, so in the next videos, I'm going to go through each one of those steps.